Hi, everybody. This is Adam Elenbaas from Nightlight Astrology, and you're listening to October's horoscopes. So this is the sun sign horoscope for Aquarius, and you can listen to this horoscope if you're an Aquarius Sun, an Aquarius Rising. Sometimes people will even listen to or read their column every month for their moon sign. So you might be an Aquarius Moon and read this. At any rate, I'd also be very happy to hear from people as to how your month is going. Feel free to leave stories or comments throughout the month on the Facebook feed here, or the YouTube feed, I mean. And I'd be really excited to read stories about how you experience these transits we're going to talk about today. So the month really gets started on October 2nd, which is when we see oops, just realized all of a sudden I do not have the outer planets in. Let's put Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto in so that we can actually see them. The month gets started October 2nd when you see here a square from Mercury to Pluto from the 9th to 12th house. This is a deeply philosophical transit that will likely have you thinking about what you really believe and what you're really committed to intellectually, philosophically, academically, maybe spiritually or religiously. This is a transit that has a lot to do with learning and developing the mind and intellect, looking at things that are deep, dark, difficult, confusing, existential, depressing, but also the opportunity to develop a higher and more sophisticated understanding of these kinds of topics that aren't always comfortable to look at. That's the sort of interesting balance that's trying to be struck when Mercury in the sign of the balance, Libra, the scales. You're looking for a leveled kind of approach, and justice and fairness and balance and beauty. Very rational sign of Libra. But then the square to Pluto in the 12th is sort of the quintessential dark night of the soul house, with a planet that's all about the death and rebirth and the underworld and stuff like that. So, for example, if you were studying existentialist philosophy, this would be a pretty good pretty good signification for that. If you're looking at the dark night of the soul in saints and the lives of mystics, this would kind of fit with that. But also, if you're going through a crisis of, an intellectual crisis, or you're having a breakthrough in something that you're studying or learning, you're having insights that are profound in some way. It could be a bit of a spiritual crisis as well. The other opportunity that comes up in the 9th house sometimes is travel. So you're also thinking about anything to do with traveling, travel abroad, study abroad, learning, and interesting conversations you may have with people from other parts of the world or of different faiths than your own. All of those things may be indicated. Now, the month really gets started on October 6th because the big story of the month is Venus's retrograde. And this is happening in a very pronounced house in your chart, which is the 10th house of career. Now, Venus rules your 9th house of religion, the higher mind, et cetera, also rules the house of home and family, parents. And so you've heard me talk a little bit about the 9th, also rules the 4th of home and parents, and is Venus going retrograde in your 10th house of career. All of which that's an interesting combination of topics to all be coming up at once. For one thing, this is very much about changes that you need to make at work or in the career place, revising or rethinking what you want to be doing with your life and your professional trajectory. It can be about relationships in the workplace, how romantic relationships are influencing your choice to work in one place or another. It can be about a total life adjustment that's happening in terms of where you're living and what you're doing professionally, or what a spouse or partner is doing professionally. There is potential to be rethinking everything from your philosophy to your religious or spiritual beliefs to your living situation, looking at land, parents, property, family stuff, as well as overall, like, what am I doing with my life and what's going on with my career? That's a lot, right? That's why Venus retrograde is our planet of the month, basically. So Venus retrograde will take place all the way through the middle of November. So it's a long transit and really working on changes and deep changes in the workplace especially, but they're connected to other things simultaneously. So you've got it connected to life path, philosophy, religion, spirituality, learning, maybe travel abroad. You also have connection to home, living environment, family, etc. There could be changes happening with your parents or your extended family members that are pretty intense, or really sudden or abrupt, or so changes that are really unanticipated. There could also be changes in a partner's life, right? So you have a number of different ways that it could play out. But that's happening all through the month of October. Now, when we keep going forward on October 8th, there's a new moon in your 9th house. Voila, right there. This is once again indicating the importance of 9th house matters this month. The higher mind, education, religion, spiritual direction in life, very much featured, a big part of the story. And the new moon on October 8th is planting a seed that says the entire next lunation cycle is going to be about newness in these areas. Possibly, again, the issue of foreign travel abroad could be fit in there as well. Now, on October 10th, the story keeps going with Venus in your career house. Venus will be square to Mars in your first house, kind of a crossroads moment. Could be some tension or stress within relationships and or the workplace. You're trying to assert yourself very powerfully right now with Mars in your first house. It's been in your first house ever since late June, which means you've been going through a time of on maybe on some level giving your power away, or kind of abdicating too much power or responsibility to somebody else. Or you could be have gone through a period of time where you were dealing with health problems. I have a lot of Aquarians in my family. I actually had a family member who had a pretty serious injury to a finger during the summer months while Mars is retrograde in their first house. So I've seen a lot of different versions of that story playing out over the summer for Aquarians, but it's ultimately it's about coming into a healthy version of your independence, your autonomy, your pride, your sort of quote unquote power. Careful about that word, but and it's directly related to your sense of purpose in life as well, because Mars is the ruler of your career house. So while you're trying to figure out what it means to be you, what it means to be a healthy, independent version of you, Venus is bearing down, from the 10th house of career, talking about relationship stuff, love life, career. And again, it ties into so many other areas that I talked about earlier. So it's a tension in relationships, especially, possibly some divergence of values in relationship that are philosophical in nature, potentially some choices that have to be made around October 10th. Kind of trying to be diplomatic, but trying to assert yourself at once might be a little tricky. But it's important that you really think about this, because next month, Jupiter is going to enter your 11th house, which means you're about to launch into an entire new vision of your future. And it's a lot of it based on the kinds of things that you're realizing right now, the kind of insights you're having, and the choices that you are going to make based on those insights, which again puts you at a kind of a crossroads. If you go forward, at the same time, I should mention, the same day, October 10th, Mercury is also opposed to Uranus from the 10th to 4th. So again, emphasizing the home, family, parents, family karma, ancestral karma, land, property, etc. And then the 10th house of career again, calling, public identity, and reputation. Mercury is the mind, speech, communication, writing, learning, technology. Opposite Uranus, the planet of rebellion and sudden disruption or change, in the 4th house of home and family. So this is a very interesting moment, because potential for kind of an intellectual breakthrough, to really speak your mind, state your mind, to make a sudden unexpected change, or to receive sudden or unexpected news. Those kinds of things are there. You're going to be careful of a kind of rebellious mental or intellectual energy right now, and be careful that you don't just suddenly quit your job, or anything that's kind of not thought through, a little too impulsive or reckless. But at the same time, sometimes, when the toast pops out of the toaster, it's done. There's an alchemy that's being accomplished, and something sudden may happen. That's just the way that it is. Sometimes that's part of our destiny. But it's a more impulsive and potentially very sort of eccentric and electric energy around the 10th. In addition to there being a kind of crossroads, it's a time to make a big decision or to speak your mind in a powerful way. Now, going forward to October 11th, then we see the Sun in Libra in the 9th, square Pluto in the 12th. Same theme, deep philosophical, spiritual crisis, learning, illuminating insights, probing the depths, figuring out what you really believe and what you really think, where your values really stand philosophically or spiritually, things that you're learning and the way that it's transforming your understanding, all figuring very deeply into, once again, the career changes you're making. It can be also a time to challenge authority or to basically, have a stronger than usual need for the truth in the bottom line. So on October 19th, the month continues another pretty dynamic transit. Mercury in your 10th will then square Mars in your 1st. Now, this is another time where it's like cutting cords, severing, eliminating, saying no to things, like especially related to career. This could also be about belligerence, argumentation, or confrontation in the workplace. Going to be careful of those things. It's also about asserting yourself, making a decision or a choice that's definitive. It's also a great time for the sharpening or honing of your skills, for research, for analysis, getting the bottom of things, and having some kind of mental or communicative breakthrough or edge, emotional catharsis in relationships, deep probing conversations. So another pretty dynamic, mental communicative type of moment, but it's about you're trying to make a choice probably, or you're trying to define something more precisely, and it's going to take an incisive mental quality around the 19th of the month to get it done. Or you could say that there is a more mentally combustive energy that you want to potentially be careful of around the 19th. And then last but not least, the final transit of the month that I'm looking at this month is the, houses shifted a little bit. Let me push that back. There we go. So there's the full moon between your 10th and 4th. And then by the end of the month, Venus retrograde in your 10th will also oppose Uranus in your 4th. So from the 24th through the end of the month, everything's coming to a head. And it's coming to head in relation to living situation, parents, home, family karma issues, and 10th house, which has so much to do with career, professional trajectory. There's a value conflict happening. There's big changes on both fronts simultaneously. And that's from the full moon on the 24th all the way through the end of the month. So things really come to a head with the Venus retrograde in your career house by the end of the month. So that's what I've got for you, Aquarius. I hope that this was interesting. I hope that you'll keep in touch. Tell me how things are going throughout the month. Comment and I'll check back on them. And I look forward to talking to you guys again next month for November's forecast. Okay, take care, everyone.